Welcome back in live to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Today, we are previewing the Oregon Ducks versus the Oklahoma Sooners in the Valero Alamo Bowl. We have a co-host today, Mike Joseph, who is an OU Sooners fan. He watches a lot of Oklahoma games and honestly probably knows more about the team than I do, especially some of the younger cats who are going to have to play in this game due to all the opt-outs. We're going to start with talking about all the opt-outs that are happening. Obviously, Oregon has a couple big ones. Kevon Thibodeau leading that list. OU also has plenty of opt-outs. Nick Bonito, Perrion Winfrey, Isaiah Thomas, and Brian Asamoah, their leading tackler, all opted out going to the NFL draft. So we're gonna see. It's gonna be a weird game, but it's two blue blood teams that it's gonna be a fun bowl game. I'm gonna kick it to you, Mike. What are your thoughts on this game? How do you think it's gonna play out?
I think it should be a good game. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring. Like you said, no Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yep.
OU's four best defensive players are going to the draft, and then they don't have Caleb Kelly, who's injured. So it's like their five best defensive players. So I think it's going to be pretty high scoring. It's also something I would have thought at the beginning of the year. This could have been this matchup I thought could have been a playoff game,
I
maybe
was
like a
thinking the
2
same
versus
thing.
3.
Yep.
Yeah, and then instead it's like the battle of the two programs that their coaches just let them fall apart.
Yeah, this is the Ducks. I wasn't as high on because I was just not an Anthony Brown guy. Hasn't really shown that he can throw the ball from the pocket downfield effectively, and that really reared its ugly head down the stretch against those two losses from Utah, where he was just absolutely abysmal. The OU Sooners, on the other hand, I thought were a lock for a playoff team. The weaker Big 12, Spencer Rattler supposedly was going to be a first round, probably possibly the first overall draft pick, combined with a really good defense that was actually pretty good most of the year. Very talented, as we just talked about. They have 4 or 5 guys who are day one, day two picks that are opted out. Unfortunately, Rattler didn't really work out in some of those big games. They also struggled with injuries pretty much most of the year. So a little bit disappointing year for the Sooners. But one more game left to finish it out. Brent Venables coming into the program, and I'm gonna ask you, what are the vibes like in the OU camp right now? Are you guys excited for the future here? How are we feeling?
I think it's positive energy. They're going to the SEC. They got a defensive minded head coach, and whereas in the past they had Lincoln Riley, who was kind of serving multiple jobs, head coach, offensive coordinator,
Yeah,
quarterbacks coach. Now they are going to have a head coach, their own offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. So I think a lot of good energy,
and
especially going to the SEC. It'll help defense.
I think that I'm kind of excited to see what Brent Venables does, getting back to a little bit more of that harder nosed football that seemed to leave the building when Lincoln Riley came in. It was much more like spread them out, try to be cute on offense, and it worked. Like, I'm not saying like he's a bad coach; he's a phenomenal coach. 2 Heisman Trophy winners, multiple high draft picks on the offensive side of the ball. But on defense, they weren't really getting the job done from a lot of those seasons. And I think a large part of it was just a lack of physicality. When you go and play those SEC teams in the playoff games, you kind of got smacked around. And so I'm excited to see what Brett Venables can bring back to Norman, Oklahoma. And let's get into this bowl game. We're looking at in these bowl games. I like to look at how does the team finish the season. We see a lot of teams when they struggle towards the end of the season, the bowl game kind of just fades out. Oklahoma was actually, in my mind, pretty solid. A tough loss to Baylor, but then they go beat Iowa State, and we're really hanging around with a very good Oklahoma State team. I think they could have won that game as well. Kind of a crazy game in Bedlam. But the OU Sooners, I kind of like where that offense is going with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, me too. I think as long as he stays, which I think he's going to. I mean, I know that the things I've seen have said that he's just focused on the game and finishing the semester and all that. But
Okay.
I think he's pretty happy with Venables and Levy, and I think the fact that he's going to play this game tomorrow is a good sign for his future staying with the school.
And no, obviously no Kayvon Thibodeau. I think OU's gonna be able to run the ball pretty well. Kennedy Brooks is gonna play.
Hmm.
Been pretty solid, 6 yards per carry, over 1,000 yards. He got spelled by Eric Gray, who's been disappointing in my mind. I thought he could have been like an all conference guy coming from UNC. It's been the Kennedy Brooks show for most of the year, but I think they're gonna be able to run the ball on this Oregon team that lets up 129 yards per game on the ground to opposing teams, and uh, obviously Kayvon Thibodeau's opted out, so that's a big guy up front. Noah Sewell, probably he's a solid linebacker. Obviously going to make some plays, but um, I think OU's going to be able to move the ball a little bit. We saw Utah kind of beat them physically. I think we're going to see OU do that too. How about on the defensive side of the ball? The Oregon Ducks and Anthony Brown, I think, just struggles. They're very one dimensional. CJ Verdell goes down to injury. Travis Dye's been the lead back and has been surprisingly good. That being said, when you're just so one dimensional and you're seeing loaded boxes because you can't throw the ball downfield, it's hard to move the ball. And I think OU is going to load the box and try to stop that prolific run game of the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be high scoring, but I think it's gonna be a lot of ground, a lot of like running
Yeah,
the ball, especially from OU. I mean, Bob Stoops coaching, he likes to keep it old school and ground and pound,
yeah,
which
with
I'm
a
excited
big
for.
quarterback.
It's gonna be like old times.
Yeah, I am too. So let's get down to the picks, kind of what our feels are. You mentioned it. You think both teams are going to be able to score. Most of these opt outs are coming from the defense side of the ball for both. Oregon has a plethora of guys opting out on the back end, along with Kayvon Thibodeau up front. OU pretty much their studs on the front four and linebackers, they're opted out. So, what do you think about this over under at 60? How are you feeling about that?
I think it's a tough one, but I would probably go over
Okay.
just because I mean 60 is pretty high, but like we've been saying the whole time, all the opt outs have been coming from the defensive sides.
Yes.
So even if they're running the ball a ton, I think they're still going to be scoring, and it's probably going over. It'd be my pick.
And both teams are above average with pace of play, plays per game. So they both like to run a little bit faster. And one other thing, and this is a huge thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about totals, especially in bowl games, is I love overs. I think especially in this game when you have two coaches who Moorhead's going to be calling the plays for Oregon. He's already got a job, I believe, in Akron. Bob Stoops is just coming in as like an interim. Like it seems like just for fun. I think you're gonna see like the whole playbook opened up. You're gonna see some double passes. You're gonna see some flea
Hmm.
flickers. They're gonna open up the playbook. Neither of these coaches are really playing for like their jobs. And so I think you're gonna see some trick plays, some exciting plays, and some aggressive defense too. So I think that all lends to an over, which is a 60's not that high, especially for a Pac-12 Big 12 matchup. What about
Yeah,
what
you're
about
looking
a
at two teams
side?
that have given
Yeah,
up a ton of points.
yep, exactly. What about a side for this? This line sitting at 6.5, so we have that hook of a touchdown. Where are you leaning for that?
I mean, I'm biased, but I'm definitely leaning towards Oklahoma minus a touchdown or minus
Yeah,
6.5. I think at the end of the day, it's just going to be their their offense. I think they just can do more, even with all the opt outs and transfers.
yeah. You still have
They still
Denzel
have their
Mims at the back
yeah
end too. So
yeah they have Mims, Caleb Williams, and Kennedy Brooks. I mean
it's a good
that's
trio.
three
Yep.
three aggressive offensive players. So
Yeah.
I think they'll be able to keep their foot on the gas offensively more than Oregon, but I think they're going to give up points still. But I think by the end, I kind of get a feeling of like last year when in OU's bowl game they played.
Florida, right?
Yeah, they played
They blew the
Florida,
doors
and it
off
was
Florida.
yeah. I kind of get that feeling again,
Oh,
but I don't
that's
know.
not a
Last
bad
year we
comp because
yeah
Florida had a ton of opt-outs. I believe Kyle Pitts opted out. The other wide receiver opted out. They had a ton of opt-outs on the offense side of the ball, and they just kind of Kyle Trask ended up staying, uh, but he just like was nothing without those weapons. Um,
yeah. I'm mostly nervous about our I just our last bowl game, we didn't have quite as many opt-outs and transfers as we did this year,
Yes, I
but
agree. Yeah.
I still think the main offensive people are gonna
Do the thing.
be
Yeah.
able to keep the business going,
I mean,
especially with
this
Bob
Utah
Stoops.
scheme scored. I mean, if you look at their last couple of games, they gave up 38 to Utah, 29 to an Oregon State team that's not that explosive in offense. They like to run the ball, and then another 38 to Utah. Um, if anything, I'm worrying about is Oregon going to be able to score enough points to cash this over because this
Yeah,
offense stinks.
yeah, I'm looking at 7 and 10 points against Utah twice, and
Yeah. That being
that's
said,
definitely concerning for the over.
oh yeah,
But
in a big way.
OU's defense probably isn't as, at least with all the opt-outs, probably isn't on the same level as Utah's was that did those 2 games.
Yes.
So
So
yeah,
picks for the
Oregon's
game, I think.
offense though, it's not what they're known for.
Yeah, I think we're both leaning over just because of all those opt outs on both teams' defense side of the ball, and I think we're also leaning with that. I'm also leaning 6.5 at the Sooners. I don't think I'll be taking a side. I think I'll be taking the over, and that's just more of a product of like I don't know what this OU defense is going to look like without these
Yeah,
guys on the front seven. So, uh, that's a review on this game. It's gonna be I call it the Clown Show Bowl just because it's just such a weird game. Seems like a glorified scrimmage. Like
yeah,
Oregon's
like
coming out with
like a summer practice
yeah, exactly.
thing.
Like a scrimmage between two like high school teams that decided to like meet in the summer and scrimmage. So I think all that stuff lends to the over. Like, I don't know how much people are gonna want to tackle. Neither of the teams are very good at tackling. You'll see some explosive plays. You'll see the playbook opened up. So that's a review on this game. Yes, the teams aren't fully equipped, but it's going to be a fun bowl game nonetheless. Mike Joseph, I appreciate you having us, being on the show with us. We look forward to having you back on. This has been a blast, and we'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for hanging out
Yes,
with us,
sir.
everyone. Peace.